So please welcome Brent Klein. Why don't you come on up? Van Bedient from Adobe, and then Dave Fredericks. So, and then I'm going to be on the panel too, again from a systems integrator perspective. I'm going to help moderate it so you don't feel like you have to ask me questions. Reinforced, Brooke is going to give you guys an additional gift certificate or a coupon for every question that you're asked. You're limited to 5. I'm just going to make that up now because I can tell some of you people are going to try to cheat the system and ask what is
What's
today's
your name?
game. Yeah.
Where do you live?
Where do you live? So we're limited to 5 in a pool, okay? We'll honor system on that. But I'll go ahead and
I have a 7-part question.
all right. Does anyone want to kick it off with a question? I had some of these sent to me already on that's up on the board, but it's going to be kind of hard for me to read one of them. Van, do you want to take one of these? They seem to be more Adobe oriented. How about number 3? What kind of adoption are you seeing with Adobe Anywhere? What are users driving factors? How else are you seeing cloud enablement?
So if you're not familiar, we have a platform called Adobe Anywhere, which we launched about 4.5 years ago, which had 2 functions. It allowed remote access to media, so remotely streaming content, and collaboration with multiple users. And at the time we built it, we started it about 6 years ago. The cloud was a bad word, and everybody said, don't build around the cloud. We would never use it. We'll never use the cloud. The cloud's never going to take off. And so we like to be very customer-led, so we listened very closely to that and designed it as a hardware-based solution. That was a high cost of entry. We didn't sell the servers, but you had to go get servers to make it work. And that was a barrier of entry for a lot of people, just that initial expense. It was, I think, complex technology that we made simple, but there were still complexities to it. About 2 years ago, we would start going to trade shows, and everybody would go, why didn't you guys build this around the cloud? And we were like, what were we thinking? I could have had a V8. So we had, again, being customer-led, had sort of made adjustments to it. And the Adobe Anywhere platform is sort of migrated into what we're calling Team Projects. And Team Projects is a cloud-hosted solution using Amazon as a backbone and through Creative Cloud that lets you create a project that's hosted in the cloud that multiple users can access at the same time. So your metadata, your project file, is stored in a cloud service, and multiple editors can log in, or graphics artists. It works with After Effects as well, and collaborate. And everybody sees everybody's up-to-date latest cuts and changes, so it's a great way to work collaboratively and manage versions of different iterations of content. And it also lets you work remotely. So we'll talk about in our demo some of the proxy workflows that we enable. So you can do things like working with 4K or high-res material, create low-res proxies that can utilize the cloud for delivery and streaming, and have people work remotely. Because more and more people we're seeing either need sometimes the ability to work at home, or have multiple offices, have multiple campuses, have offices here and other places in the country. So it allows people to collaborate and stay in sync using cloud technology. I'm pretty excited about it. We've had a lot of great success and feedback on it so far, and it will certainly evolve. So we are seeing a lot of customers start to utilize the cloud, start to warm up to the idea, and especially as people get distributed and companies are spread out across the country and the city. It's nice that it works within the building in a local work group, but it also allows you to have some remote access and flexibility, because a lot of us are on the run these days, or out at events and beautiful venues like this, trying to serve content and content velocity and keep up with all the social media and all the different channels that we're now feeding content to. So that's a little bit about where Adobe Anywhere has become Team Projects.
Great, thank you. Just a quick pause. I completely forgot about Dave Zur giving a hosting remark thing. So I'm going to come back to you on that, even though I forgot about it. We'll do it after the panel. I apologize. I'll let you eat your sandwich, though. That's why.
No,
I didn't want to interrupt your breakfast.
You can get an extra ticket.
So I got a question. From an Adobe perspective, I see this all over the place because I cover rather good site geography, and from post to house of worship to corporate. Lance talked about the shift some are making from Mac to PC. Okay? And PCs being very customizable. When you get to the very high-end computers that can handle the high-resolution color correction and large VFX workflows, the computers aren't that much of a difference in price when it comes to a high-run app, right?
Sure.
What are you seeing as a shift? Because from my point of view, I do see a lot of people, especially in the corporate world, saying, we're going to explore. And they're starting to get those PCs in-house to see how they can, because of the IT departments being much more involved in the workflows I see. What are you seeing from your perspective as far as that type of shift from a PC or from a Mac to a PC, or do you even see that?
Carl and I flew into town yesterday morning and squeezed in 2 meetings. Both customers asked us about a switch from Mac to PC. So it is top of mind for a lot of people. The Mac Pros, which have been good workstations, are 3 to 4 years old at this point, and a lot of people still waiting for a refresh. We enjoy being agnostic and neutral as far as platform. We work really hard to make feature parity across both the platforms. But we are seeing a lot more people, and I think historically the creatives generally prefer Mac, and IT and purchasing generally prefers PC. The example given that there are workstations you can load up on PC and make them top of the line, and they're price comparable with Macs, which can be fairly expensive, but you can also get lower cost machines a little bit easier as well on the PC side. That based on specs, would significantly outperform the Mac. So it really comes down to creative preference. And in some cases, there's an argument of the software is a software, and once you're in the software, other than maybe a right click or a command versus an alt key, they're the same. And what's the best tool for the job? And if you're passionate about Mac, I've been using Mac since 1982, I think. You can have a laptop or something right next to you for your email and things like that, but you might have an editing station or a graphics workstation or whatever platform you're on. That's the best tool for the job right there. That's going to get the work done. So we are seeing a lot of people question it. There's rumors about Apple and what their plans might be. I've never seen anybody really be able to predict what might be coming, so your guess is as good as mine. From a logistical perspective and actually facilitating a change, it isn't overly complicated. You do have to, things like fonts and naming conventions and things between the OS levels you have to consider. If you have plugins, you have to make sure that you've talked to the plugin vendor, and they may have to switch the license. Our software runs on both. Quantum allows you to run on both. The only limitation that we sometimes run into on the PC side is that we do have a lot of customers that like to use Apple ProRes, which is a great codec. We at this time don't have a license to write it on Windows. We keep asking politely to be granted that, but if you're
sure it'll come someday.
If you're a ProRes user, there's QuickTime Cineform, there are other options, but that's just the one consideration that it's a limitation, not that we've introduced, but that we're bound by. So just
let me add one other element to this, and that is we've just completed about a 6-week process of sort of rigorous 4K format performance testing on StorNext. I mean, it took 3 people in the Englewood office over a month to run all the tests that we designed. And it covered Macs, PCs, and Linux. It went through every array we had. We ran the arrays at 0% full and 85% full. We ran them on 7 different 4K formats, everything from ProRes 424 up to full aperture uncompressed 4K. What we found was that the Mac OS is a very chatty operating system, and it gets in the data stream. It gets in the way. And given that you have the same exact array, the same exact test, the same exact data, you run it across those 3 operating systems, you're going to see variations, not huge, but consistent variations. Linux is consistently the fastest operating system. It's the lightest, it stays out of the way, and it just gives you the maximum performance from a storage device. And Macs are consistently the slowest. So now, if you're not doing 4K workflows, or you're not using 50 or 60 editors at a time, maybe it's not an issue. And frankly, there's costs involved in training. There's costs involved in acquisition of editors and artists. There's, all those matter. So, but understanding all the metrics that go into what might affect your business goes back to the point here, which was the right tool for the job. So, if you've got someone who's really got to be on Macs, then great, put them on Macs. And then if somebody's cranking out, trying to do 4K uncompressed full aperture color correction, you might want to have them on a Linux machine running an application that can do it that way. But that's another consideration.
Well, and then to dovetail onto that too, there's the day-to-day workings of whether it's Mac or PC. There's also the other side, putting on my IT hat, where
administration and maintenance.
Yes, security, probably number one, and the ability to maintain the machines and the infrastructure that you've built becomes a huge priority. And it's not necessarily something you think about as you're creating, content and creating art, but security and having the right people in the system and having the right people being able to access it and is becoming far more critical. No matter how closed down your network is, there's still a security component and a security feature that you have to address too.
That does remind me one thing real quick. I want to say, Tom, is speaking of security, is authentication. There's a lot of customers still today that aren't doing authentication centrally. They're doing local authentication. You got freelancers sharing logins and things like that. As people are growing up organically, organizations growing up organically and getting more accessibility to the content, there's a convergence point where you have to start being more conscious about authentication and doing something centralized, even if you do have things like freelancers. And so there is I'm seeing a trend getting into asset management, who has rights to this data, who doesn't have rights, who can delete it, who can archive it, all that kind of stuff. You have to have authentication, and it's surprising how many people still don't do it in the creative group. And that's one of those barriers between IT and creative. Is one example. Tom, do you have a question?
Yeah, this is probably for Ben or when you switch forward from the PC world, from the Apple world into the PC world, we've been running on Macs for a long time, and we have quite a bit of a library of ProRes Housemasters. We went to ProRes probably, I want to say maybe 2-3 years ago, give or take. Before that, we were running on XP Canvas as our Housemasters. I also own the Intelligent Advantage Array, which does quite a bit of flipping of the files to be able to enable our broadcasting operations, files to be used in editing and vice versa, right? What if we were to move off of the Apple world and get into the PC world? What are we talking in terms of switching from Housemasters, flipping all the files to be able to communicate on the PC platform within the Adobe world? How does that come? What are we talking about, not just from the sales perspective, but from the logistics perspective of how to make all that stuff, reworked itself into that new world?
Sure, great question. What we commonly see is a lot of people don't want to go through a process of converting their archive material, and it depends on how frequently you use it. There were announced last year there were security concerns about having QuickTime installed on the Windows side. And so we did some scrambling and rewrote all our importers and exporters so that we support QuickTime natively without having QuickTime installed on all our applications on the video side. So we've also optimized those. They're all 64-bit. They're in there for the long term. So on the PC platform, we can read all the previous ProRes or existing ProRes that you might have in your library. So there wouldn't necessarily be a need, unless you just really wanted to standardize everything, to flip all of that content. You could bring it back into the system whenever you need it. We read it great, we play it back. We don't need QuickTime installed. We have great performance with it. When you're ready to export and deliver or create new media for the archive, that's where we could have a discussion about other alternatives. You could still stay QuickTime based. It's only specifically the ProRes codec profile that we don't have access to write to today. If you have a Telestream, Telestream can write out ProRes, so you can maybe two-step that process. If you just wanted to stay on ProRes, that's great. So it is kind of a personalized decision depending on each of the workflows, but we have every intention of continuing to support reading ProRes on Windows and having great performance or playback on Windows with ProRes for indefinitely. And then when you export again, Cineform QuickTime Cineform has been a really good option because it's a cross-platform codec. It goes up to 10-bit. It can support alpha channel, so performance has gotten quite good on it. So it's comparable to ProRes picture quality-wise. It does have a few different profiles. It's 10-bit, it's cross-platform, and it keeps you in the QuickTime family. So if you just want to be able to have a file on disk and double-click it on the desktop to preview it, which is a really convenient thing to do rather than MXF, that's great. And I don't know enough about your workflow, and in a lot of workflows, if you do use anything like growing files, if you're doing live type of sports or live events and things like that, MXF standards are much easier to handle in situations like that. So, XDCam or ABC Intra or other options around MXF are great, and we support all those as well. So we're fortunate. We've put a lot of work into being able to support just about any codec that's out in the market. So we give you a lot of options, and then just we're glad to work with you on that process if you want to go through it to maybe figure out the best process to make it really seamless for your operation. Sorry, that was a long answer.
Susan.
Hi, my question is more on the managerial side of things. So I hire a lot of our freelance editors, and when I'm seeing a lot of resumes across my desk, some people will be Premiere certified. And I'm wondering, what exactly does that mean, and does that give them an edge, or, of course, having a creative skill set is somewhat, subjective, but does having that certification, what does that mean, and is it a plus for them?
It is, and I have to be careful here. I don't want to discount anybody who's taken the time to go through the classes or get a certification, because that's an investment of time and often cost, and it does mean something. It certainly has value. We don't, I would say majority of editors that I work with probably don't have it and are still very qualified. So there probably is still a little bit of a weeding out process to make sure that they're really comfortable with the tool. We've done a lot. If people are coming from other platforms such as Avid or Final Cut, that we have keyboard shortcuts built in, so it's very easy for them to just map the keyboard shortcuts that they're used to, especially editors that are very muscle memory driven because they're doing the same commands all day long. So, and we can import projects from other systems. So we've tried to make it easy for customers to adopt the platform and get comfortable on it. The certification is always good, but I definitely wouldn't say it's a requirement. Online learning has become such a valuable tool, and whether it's things like lynda.com or something, or just even tutorials on the web. I've worked with a lot of great people who are self-taught, so it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're not certified, you're not qualified, but certification is obviously somebody's took the time to invest in it and make sure that they know it and they're ready to come to work and get to work right away. But I wouldn't necessarily say I would automatically decline somebody who didn't have that, because there are plenty of talented people who haven't gone through the certification process. And and in fact, I would say again, the majority we do have the classes, and so people seek them out and get trained on them. But there's so many other great avenues for learning the products, and a lot of people have been Adobe users for a long time. So you can find really talented editors that haven't gone through any certification.
Ann.
One of the issues our editors have been running into is that a lot of the cameras we have will record in AVC HD, and we're having this issue. We're not sure if it's more of an Adobe thing or more of a Quantum thing, but when those files are on our server, the Quantum storage, versus just locally on the computer, you don't really get the correct view options for those files. They aren't really recognized as containing span clips. And so you can't import them into Adobe, into Premiere correctly. And so you have to basically like go in, package contents, and then be able to import them into Premiere. And what happens is that when you do that, it ends up causing duplicate and triplicate files in Premiere. So it's like having to go back constantly and clean things up. I don't know if Patrick can speak any more to that, but
It's a pain in the butt.
And, you know, we would need to look at your specific situation, but do you have people who are creating projects that have linked files and then other people are expected to work on that content? Is that kind of what's happening? Because it could be a matter of either permissions or access to directories across different clients. If someone's creating a project that's linked out and someone else doesn't have access to the linked folders that they just created because of authentication or other types of permissions, they wouldn't necessarily be able to see that content as online. Essentially, it might be one thing that's causing it. You have a suggestion on it?
No, not a suggestion, just another question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I do have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Hi, Carl from Adobe. First off, when you're importing anything that spans the media into different physical files on disk, highly recommended to use the media browser to do that if you can. Media browser will automatically recognize that there are span clips and generally fixes a lot of those issues. Second thing, AVC HD. You say AVC HD or AVC Intro?
She said HD.
AVC HD, out of all the formats, we do support it natively, but it is the one format that I find more and more customers just transcode on ingest. And it's because it was a consumer level format. It's just the directory structure. There's so many things that can go wrong with it that the majority of the customers that I deal with do transcode it to something else.
The one we've had pretty good success with, and I don't disagree with that, is off some of the Sony cameras like the FS7. I don't know which camera you're seeing it from. As Carl said, the media browser is really important. A lot of people are in the process with Command-I or drag and drop standard import, you know, in any application. But we've written an application called the media browser, which understands card-based formats and parses the card, and so it will translate and recognize span clips and time code breaks or any of those sort of things. So it has some intelligence built in there. It is a challenging codec. It's mathematically very computationally intensive, so you do want to be on a good computer. It will sometimes not perform as well as things like ProRes or DNX, but it should work, and we're happy to follow up with you to make sure we can get working with Quantum. We have a partner team, and so
just to close the loop, we don't know what format you're using. We just see data. So there's nothing that we do special for one format or another, and there's nothing that we do necessarily wrong for one format or another either. So there may be, it sounds to me like there's a kind of combination of either workflow or something else that could be causing a difficulty. But
yeah, because it works fine with like local, like on a local drive.
Well, local drive, we're out of it.
Yeah,
then you're not using a shared infrastructure.
Fine, so it's not. So we think it works fine in Premiere if you import it from a local source versus if it's on our RAIDs basically and connected through our StorExcel system.
Yeah.
So we didn't know like where the.
I assume your goal is to be able to work directly on the RAID array as opposed to having to import directly. There's no reason why that shouldn't work, but we can, between the two companies, I'm sure we can figure it out.
yeah, let's connect after, and we're happy to follow up and get our partner. We have a partner team that works closely with Quantum as well, so if there is an issue between the two platforms, we'll help get it resolved.
David, you have a question, David?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if you could speak about VR trends and what Adobe's working on that side and other things from the industry.
Sure. You know, it was NAB last year in 2016 that we first released some VR features, and it was kind of like, well, there's a buzz around it. Let's just kind of put our toe in the water and see where it goes. We don't know what the future of it is. Maybe it'll just be for gaming or whatever. We gave an engineer a couple things to do, and he kind of was an overachiever and got carried away and went home on the weekend and built a bunch of cool stuff. And we came out at NAB and we released it, and we probably put it 5th or 6th down on the list of new things that we'd added. But by far on social media and press reviews and things, it was the #1 talked about topic. And it's only grown since then. We're fortunate to have so many people using either Premiere or After Effects or a combination of both to work with VR. So we've continued to make enhancements. We don't do the stitching of it, because each camera manufacturer typically has a recipe or a way they like you to do that. But we take in 360 content, and we'll demo this in the demo as we have come up in a little bit. And we can go inside in the VR mode and basically give you the view as if you were in the headset while you're in the editing process. And then we work closely with companies like Metal Skybox, which is by far the most common plugin that's used to do effects or titles and things in the 360 space. And we can actually get a live output from the editing system, so you can preview it before you export, so it's not export test, oh, wrong, export test, so shampoo, rinse, repeat. So we have been really overwhelmed by the response on it, so we're definitely, we actually just put out requisitions to hire 4 more engineers to continue working on it and developing it. We're looking into ambisonic sound is one of the next things, so if I'm in 360 space on the field here at Sports Authority, and I want to have make sure the sound that's coming from behind me is located spatially in the correct place. So that's something we're looking into as well. So you will see more and more enhancements from Adobe around it, and we're in it for the ride and see where the industry takes it. I think it's still up in the air. I think everybody's still finding the platform and the best use cases for it. But we've been really excited about the great content that's being made.
On that same note, is 3D a trend that is going away?
Yeah.
So
if not already gone, I would say.
The last 2 TV manufacturers that were making 3D just about a month ago announced that they've stopped their 3D line. So it is, some people are saying officially dead. That's not Adobe's statement. We had decided to skip out on the 3D phase. We didn't actually build any functionality into Premiere or After Effects around 3D. Until VR, because some of that is actually over under side-by-side 360 stereo. So now we ended up putting it in for a completely different reason. Right at the time 3D is dying. So yeah, it's I think theatrically it'll still continue, but it went from a process of shooting for 3D to now films are just dimensionalized at the end of the process. And I enjoy certain films in that in that exhibition mode, but at home it seems to have gone away.
I think it's interesting, you've got kind of the people in this room run the gamut of people who can take real good advantage of VR. And you've got sports, live sports even being presented where you could watch from a courtside seat a game and be able to sell a ticket to that. And then you've got Remax with real estate, which is a tremendous opportunity for VR. And it's kind of, I just see that as interesting as it can apply both to mass market entertainment through sports or other type of cinematic approaches, and yet still the interactive aspect of it is supported as well in a really effective way. So it does all of that a lot better than 3D, and because of the immersive nature, it becomes all that much more engaging.
Van, to follow up on her question with the ABC HD codec and also with Canon, there's the spanning clips of their 2 codecs happen a lot. With Media Encoder now putting in stitchability to bring that, is that something that could help their scenario with just taking that footage and taking those spanning clips and using the stitching? I mean, not the stitching, well, it is
linking.
Yeah, it is stitching.
Or would they have frame?
It shouldn't be necessary. We should interpret it and recognize it fine. And I don't know if the Canon or Sony. I've worked more with the Sony, and it's been quite good. And other than it is challenging for the computer to keep up with it. It is workable, so we didn't have to transcode. I have some great content that we've done with Sony that looks great. It's interesting that it's not happening local versus the quantum, so we'll definitely have to follow up and take a look and understand the process a little bit more, but I'm confident we can get it fixed. And as you mentioned, the permissions can sometimes be an issue, so it may just be having difficulty resolving some
We've
of the
seen that
permissions.
with Canon. We'll send out a couple DSLR shooters, and they'll come back and they'll try and multicam that 2 pieces together with the Canon footage, and they'll take that, and even on a Isilon-based system, as soon as they go local, it works fine. So.
Yeah, I think I haven't seen it as much because I think computers are, I think a lot of people have upgraded their computers. When we have a lot of people starting to switch to Adobe a couple of years ago, they had been on platforms where they were restricted to one specific codec, ProRes, for example, which is an iframe codec designed for editing systems, optimized exactly for that type of environment. And it's great that you can mix AVC HD and 4K and some of these codecs, but they're much more challenging on the computer. So when a lot of people have the old Mac Pro, the cheese grater ones or whatever, and they were used to working in ProRes, and they start working with all these more complex codecs, they're like, oh, you said it could work with everything, but it's really struggling with it, and because those are much more challenging formats to sometimes decode. But I think we've seen a lot of people upgrade either to Mac or PC, as we've discussed, and the computers are keeping up quite well. So it is just a consideration, and we'll also show the proxy workflows that we're alluded to, and how we can kind of help performance if you are on a laptop or a little bit older machine to work with more of the contemporary codecs. Because there's a thing of Moore's law that computers got faster, doubled in speed every 18 months. I think that's trailed off, but codecs seem to be getting bigger and more challenging every 18 months, so or every 3 months.
Moore's law cubed.
Yeah, exactly.
And the math is getting better on codecs too.
Absolutely.
I'm getting better to getting small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just from the storage perspective, what do you see as, I suppose, the sweet spot for being able to work with different formats, being able to transcode things from the Adobe side, sort of in flight, stitching things together, as opposed to being able to take a whole bunch of different media and different codecs and kind of put it all as, the most common, or at least most viable, in quotation marks, for Adobe, so that we don't have 10 copies of the master in 8 different codecs and then other stuff. One of the things that I'm finding, because I'm on the admin for our Isilon poster, is that a lot of editors will make copies in a variety of codecs for their needs, and I'm constantly struggling going, please delete this stuff because I have 8 versions of the same clip, right? And the storage is just getting more and more bloated. How does that, what are you seeing in the industry as sort of the sweet spot? And also, how does that affect the storage, offloading things where you need to bring things back faster? That speaks to the quantum solutions, cloud and otherwise.
Sure, there's a term, snowflake workflows. Everybody's workflows seem a little bit different and unique in certain ways. But one of the things that is consistent is there are a proliferation of codecs often, and they're getting bigger and larger, and people are shooting in more high-resolution content. As we just mentioned, in some cases, either the investment of infrastructure isn't paid for, and you're not ready to upgrade that to support 4K or high resolution, or the same with computers, and laptops and things are very capable these days, but they do get stressed in some of these higher resolution and more complex workflows. So we introduced a new, to try to help with this, because we're hearing a lot from customers as presenting challenges. We introduced a new workflow with the proxy workflow. And proxy is not a revolutionary concept at all, but I think we tried to make it very simple, and elegant. So when you ingest media from a card or from wherever you want to ingest media, you have the option to create a low-res proxy, and that could be 4K to HD, for example, but it could be HD to a lower bitrate SD or an H.264 or something that's lighter for your computer. It gets represented within the project as a single clip, so you see one asset, but it can point to multiple versions of media. So it can have, I'll use the 4K to an HD example, it can have 2 different media files pointing to that single clip. Now, LTO tape was mentioned, so maybe I want to put that 4K on LTO, or I want to upload it into the cloud. I want to put it off my Tier 1 storage because I don't have the capacity to handle all of that 4K material online at the same time, and I can just leave the proxy there. Or we mentioned the team projects and being able to work remotely. I can send the proxy via Dropbox or OneDrive or however I want to do it to a remote user, and I can keep the 4K online here on my Tier 1 storage. So a lot of flexibility that way, but the proxy, the nice thing about it is it's a single click relink. So if the proxy's not online, or I take the 4K off and archive that, it just works with the proxy. It recognizes that that's the only version of the media that's there, and it just automatically works off that. If I, same if I take the proxy offline, I just have my 4K, it's going to automatically find that, but I can toggle back and forth with a single click. So it gives me the ability to immediately on ingest, it'll do this in the background, create a lower bit rate, lightweight version of the media that I can work with very fluidly. It's easier on my infrastructure and on my computers. And then when I'm ready to output, a single button push. Now I'm at high res, full version. I can just check for quality, and go ahead and export right from there. So I think that helps make it easier for people that are dealing with the challenges of trying to keep up with the high bandwidth and high frame rate material that's often being shot. So we think that makes it a little bit easier. We'll show you a quick demo of that when Carl comes up to do a little demo at the end.
And asset management systems can help with a lot of that workflow as well. I know you guys have an asset management system yourself, but they can talk between proxy and high res, and then you can, once you're done, you can edit everything in low res, and then click off a conform that goes off to a server that actually gets the high res and conforms it.
That was going to be my follow-up question. How does that
No,
work?
you can't get another ticket. No.
Let me just build on something that Lance had on one of his slides, and that's with regard to data analytics. And by the way, I'm not allowed to help you because you're Isilon based, but no, I'm teasing. But there are some, in addition to MAMs in terms of the way they handle asset management, there are also some fairly reasonably priced tools for what they help you do in the form of things like data frameworks. Anybody know data frameworks? The Clarity Now product. Another one is Comprise. That's a company that's coming up. But what they've done is they've basically figured out that the value of data management can be greater than the value of data capacity. And what I would say is to evaluate your workflows. Maybe your editors are doing this kind of running off all these copies because it actually helps them work faster. But on the back end is your process of, okay, you're done with that. Now how do I find all these things you put out there? That's what they focus on. And they'll do analytics across multiple storage systems, look for patterns in naming, projects, project numbers, those kinds of things, gather all that up and give you a profile. How many people use tree size on their PC to look at folder sizes all the way down the tree? It's essentially what they give you across every storage device in your facility. And that allows you to see on a project basis, or on a user basis, or on a type of content basis. Maybe you want to look for all the 4K content, or you want to look for all the QuickTime wrapped content. And it'll give you that look, and then you can say, for example, in a StorNext environment, you could right-click on all the project stuff that it found and said, archive that to tape or archive it to cloud. And so that level of data management, MAMs aren't necessarily that good at what happens after the project's done. They're very good at projects in process. And so that role is being fulfilled by some other companies. And eventually, I think it'll all get subsumed into general data management within a media asset workflow. But for the time being, it's still sort of a piecemeal process.
I just ran a data frameworks analytics on a 120 terabyte volume last night. 1.2 million files, took 4 minutes to run the analytics. And now from the log file, from that analytics, you can do any kind of cut that
Right.
Dave was talking about on how you want to look at your data. And actually
And
trigger,
in the case of
some
Pfizer,
decisions too.
yeah, in the case of Pfizer, they ran an analysis on Pfizer's systems, the drug company. They found projects on servers that were 7 years beyond where they were legally able to have any of that content on their system. So they immediately said, not only get that off the system, get it the hell off the system, and make sure I never knew it was there. but what that does then is it frees up primary storage space, and primary storage space costs you money. So every time you can get something off primary storage and get it into the archive, you're getting free primary storage. Think of it that way. Right?
Ivan.
Hi, Ivan from Focus. We're in the throes of just sort of getting used to our brand new Excelis quantum storage system and all the attendant growing pains that come along with a new installation. And several of us, including some new staff members, are looking for things, I guess, that you could call best practices within our new environment. Things like you're talking about of, data management, file management, being able to prepare lots of old, unmanaged content to organize it, to, you know, get ready to move toward a NAM solution that Lance has been helping us along with, and hopefully we'll be able to purchase sooner than later.
1 year.
But anyway, in the best practice environment, you know, now that we have this large storage system, we don't want to turn it into a bigger disorganized mess. So can you point us toward, you know, some industry best practices? And
Well, the one thing, the one thing that
No, seriously, I think you have to, like what we just talked about.
Sure,
even
yeah.
you'd be amazed at how simple and effective something like Data Frameworks is. It's just it's almost like a utility.
It's pretty cheap.
Really, really powerful. And if you're looking for organization and just say, what have I got here? It's probably the best value for doing that kind of stuff.
It would help you not just tactically on hygiene of your current volume or volumes that you have, but you mentioned your next step going into asset management. Well, going from unstructured, non-asset management to an asset management, you have to have some normalization, metadata normalization,
Right.
file naming conventions, how you're going to tag, how you're going to log. So it's a really healthy thing for you to do leading up to going to an asset management system.
Yeah.
It'll only help that migration.
Yeah,
even more.
file naming #1. That is a #1.
Yeah.
yeah.
You still haven't given me the file naming convention
We
yet.
still don't know.
Well, and even when you, by the way, even when you have a file naming convention, there will be variations of spelling or variations of hyphenation or
Right.
capitalization.
Right, but if you
spell the name wrong.
Right.
Yeah, but if you're going in a logical sequence of maybe 4 or 5 identifiers, right, for lack of a better term, as long as you're going in a correct order as you name it, then misspellings, you can kind of work around that, and you can the asset management system and or whoever's looking at the content can at least understand what it is.
Yeah.
So that's key.
I think, didn't you, Andy, have a question?
This is more for
Sorry, I just
Van.
want to catch him before we lose him.
Has Adobe tested the waters of trying their own codec? I appreciate you working with all these other codecs. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But if you guys adopted something, I heard had something. I think there might be a wide adoption of have you tried the SideFrame Adobe codec that is just as elegant as ProRes, supports alpha channels, and supports some other things like that.
No, it's a great question. I was just going to comment on his storage question. I always look at that as storage is like money in my checking account. If I have it, I spend it, and if I have extra in my account, then I'm more loose about spending it. And when you put in a new storage system, it's so easy to start filling it up because you're like, I have all this space now, and all of a sudden you're like, where did it all go? The same with my money. It's like, where did it all go? It is a challenge. Asset management is a great way to be able to help with that because, as you mentioned, 8 versions of a file. It's great to be able to search and say, show me anything that hasn't been touched in 6 months, and some of the depth that you can get into, and those things can really be helpful. It's a great question. As far as the codecs, we've definitely talked about it. We had Cinnamon DNG a long time ago. Not that that's an optimized codec in today's world, but I think what I've seen in the industry a lot is I want our standard to be like that one, that's just a little bit different, so let's create a new standard. And everybody has their own standard, and it just becomes where we are today, where there's so many different codecs and formats and things to manage. Also with the archives that people have talked about of having a legacy of a lot of different footage that they want to keep and not having to constantly convert it. We felt like the approach was the best approach was just to try to support everything out there and just make it simple for people to choose a codec. A lot of times it's based on the acquisition because it's coming from a camera. If you're in a broadcast environment, typically you have a house format, and some people have servers and things that are tailored to a certain format, which might have created strain if we said use ours. So I think we're trying to be a good citizen. I don't know that it was the right decision to not make one versus make one, but the conscious decision was there's plenty out there, and people have already standardized on them. So let's not make it more complicated. Now, if that changes down the road and we feel like we could add value, or there's really a great reason to do it, we'd certainly consider it.
Actually, 2 questions. And this is for the group. How many of you got bigger post houses actually have a librarian on staff whose job is
Good
really
question.
providing? Okay, so there is. All three of us full time. Say what?
We're all from the same company, so
Okay, one. Okay.
As a law,
Oh,
he
shucks.
is responsible for finding stuff and bringing it back off of many various types of
Gotcha.
storage it's been on before.
Okay, so that is still part of the.
Oh, yeah.
The idea. Well, I just want to make sure, so they understand, you know, we need that. But then the second question is with the ABCHD workflow, especially on the Canon side, you know, the MTSs will have our, you know, same clip name. So what I've done is I went ahead and started changing the MTSs and renaming it to MPEGs, just so I can do it, and then adding an actual name to the file, if that makes any sense. Now the first question is, am I doing anything that's going to be damaging the source file, changing the MTS to an actual MPEG, and then is there any issues with that? I haven't had any issues, but then again, I was working on a local drive, and now I'm trying to apply, you know, what I do, you know, a local drive on an expanded network. Is there going to be any issues with that?
I don't expect you to see any issues. We do have, through Adobe Media Encoder, we've built in some tools that let you batch rename clips automatically on ingest. So
because I've been just using Automator to do it, to rename it.
Yeah, I'd be a little tentative endorsing that because I don't want to say that should work fine and then have you have a problem and get stuck somewhere. But I think probably the preferred method would be to do the ingest part where you can do batch rename. You can actually add custom metadata if you want to do that as a batch process as well.
Okay.
That would probably be a little more safer. That's how we test it, so that's what the way we know works. Not that the other way won't. But if you want to walk through that, and for anybody, you know, feel free to get in touch with us. We're happy to follow up and work with you on any of these issues and ABCHD playback or things like that. So
I mean, because the initial issue was, you know, it all has the same file name. And then when you have multiple projects with all, say, a file name, and then they all go offline. And some editors don't, you know, rename their folders real well.
It makes a librarian shop.
Yeah, I was going to go that far. But,
So related to the library question, let me put this to the group. How many of you have quote-unquote archive libraries that constitute a room full of removable disks or SCSI disks that are put on the shelf? And okay, you guys put those down and there. Okay, all right. So put them down for consultation. We have a 12-step program. The first is admitting you have a problem.
So real quick, time check. We're going to do a break in 15 minutes, so we'll continue with the panel for 15 more minutes. We'll do a quick break just so you guys get a little bio break. And we'll have Dave come up and do some hosting remarks that I forgot about. And then we'll roll into the Adobe demo. So 15 minutes if you guys can pause on a bio break. Yeah?
Just real quick, going back to the Mac to PC transition. In your experience, and after the implementation and the dust settles, do you ever get any feedback, negative, like we should have done this was a big mistake, should have stayed with Mac, or is it generally positive?
You want to take that, Lance?
Yeah.
It's just such a religious, you know, debate. You know, and it's like getting back into that battle between IT and creative. The creative people, they would just love to stay on the Mac side. And I think it was Van or maybe it was you, Brent, that mentioned that on the IT side, you know, Windows is better for security, or it's more common within the environment.
Yeah.
So it's still sometimes it's a business decision, and IT wins, you know, and sometimes the creative people win the business decisions because you're gonna have people leave or whatever, but. I can't tell you. I haven't experienced people doing a full boat switch. I know there's people in this room that are going down that path. So maybe in our next session that we do, we'll get some real-time experience with how painful that is. But we do have quite a few customers that maybe are 80% Mac and the 20% are on Windows for Media Composer or whatever else, or some render farms. But there is a lot of mix too.
How do you guys feel about Apple's investments in the creative community and the professional creative community? I mean, it just seems like So you can drive to work in a Mac autonomous vehicle pretty soon, but you may not be able to run your media applications. That worries me, right? So.
I mean, what's the point in buying a top-end trash can when you have to build a chassis around it to actually make it work with, you know, video cards and whatnot? I mean, that's like stupid.
Yeah, you're redesigning the entire infrastructure surrounding a computer to make it do what you need it to do.
Right. And on that point, with the new Creative Cloud that's updating the version of whatever Adobe program you have to be using, if the platform, say a Mac trash can, stays the same, and you're locked in by whatever OS will run on that, how does Adobe plan to handle, I guess, operating system straddling between an old version and new version?
Staying back a version.
So what we're trying to do, you know, not super rigidly, but we're trying to keep it the current version of Mac OS and one major version back. So right now we can support 10.11 or 10.12 and 10.10. 10.9 it was just recently cut off in the last release, and it really comes down to testing, because each one of those OSs doubles our test cycle, where we have to test everything in it and we got to test everything here. And as we're releasing software more frequently, our test cycles are constrained. So it's never that we don't want to support that anymore. It's really just logistically, we do want to keep moving forward, and we're trying to keep it reasonable with a couple versions back of software. And also just on the side, I think people are generally successful with a switch in either direction. The one place it doesn't work, I know there's some executives and business runners here, is if it's forced on a creative team that really wants to fight it through the process. Because I've seen as much as, you know, on the Mac I had this error yesterday and I restarted, but it happened on a PC and I'm going to be difficult, so I'm going to, hey, it's not working, I can't get my work done. So everybody does have to buy into the process if you want to make it successful. And again, if you're passionate about Mac and you want to have a laptop for your email and social media, whatever else next to you, that's great, an iPad, you know, but if it is the tool for the job, you know, it really helps when everybody's on board with that change.
Then one part of the Apple question, Apple's business team yell at them, talk to them, and let them know that, you know, you're fed up. Because after they gave their demo in October of their new laptops that have really turned out to be sort of a cluster. If you speak your mind and you talk to them, it gets sent up the channel. And it's important for them to hear your voice. Don't just sit there and be an evangelist for the product, because if they don't hear it, they're not going to change it. They'll go, yeah, we make billions of dollars on phones and iPads. We don't need to care about the pro market and the Mac Pro side, which has been very painful. The Mac Pros are a failure. And they need to know that, you know, you've had the headaches that you do. On the PC switching side, Dan, the Gone Girl and all the ones that Adobe has had relationships with the editing side, were those all Mac or were those PC or a mixture?
You know, majority of the what we'll call offline editing, which in some cases Gone Girl was 2.5K, so it's hard to say that was offline, but they did that on the Mac. They were conforming in 5K, and we built some really beefy PC workstations to handle that. So they're just sort of a threshold of, we just did a movie called 6 Below that was done entirely 6K through the entire process, which was crazy. And they had to do that on really high-end PCs. It's the only thing that could handle it in that case. So there is sort of an industrial level job that you have to, in some cases, just get that extra horsepower to be able to handle. You know, as mentioned, it's a religious or spiritual issue sometimes, or political, or we try not to get into the fight when people are passionate about it, and we try to just support both. But it's an important decision a lot of people are facing, and it's come up a lot today.
Speaking of high res, we ran the 8K uncompressed POC for the NHK Olympics in 2020 on Premiere.
Yeah, Tom.
I have a question, kind of switching gears a little bit. I have a question about what Quantum's philosophy is, both internally and externally, for deduping. So as I said, I run a nice lawn cluster now. They have their own deduping piece. As we look to other platforms, other solutions, as I desperately try to dedupe my facility off of 8 versions of everything, what's Quantum's solution?
So when you say dedupe off of 8 versions of everything, removing the number of replications you have of a particular file isn't what we consider deduplication. Media doesn't deduplicate very well, if at all.
Yes.
Right? We make a very powerful deduplication product for the IT industry called DXI. And it's a hardware-based deduplication system that's typically used in backup workflows, where companies have more data generated in a day than they can back up in 24 hours. So we do duplication inline, we write that off to tape, and it becomes a very efficient. It's got some disk cache built into it to hold the data while it's being deduplicated. There's been some other companies that provide hardware-based deduplication, and there's software packages like Veeam and Symantec and others that do software-based deduplication. Deduplication of the data is something that will probably never be of any advantage in the media space, just because of the way media is so non-duplicative, right?
With that said, usually customers that are asking us that question, they don't have an asset management system. And I want to say that because I know you do have an asset management system. So there's also probably an issue with your workflow process, your business process on how you're driving content from creation to distribution. And if an asset management system is managing that workflow, you usually inherently minimize deduplication from happening in the first place. Yeah.
But we're not here to sit here and tell you your workflow is wrong. If it works for you, great. But if you're asking people about, I want to deduplicate my data, they're not, and your data is all media, you're just not going to be able to do that.
I guess the bigger question, and maybe this goes out to the entire group, is what do we do as storage professionals to prevent, or once it happens, how do we deal with multiple editors using the same clip and saving in 10 different places, because they're afraid someone's going to delete it, or they're going to modify it, or something else will happen, or it'll go offline, or whatever. It's a very common thing for editors to do, right? Because everybody kind of works. I want my own little bit of all my stuff, and the guy next door is going, well, I have everything in the same bin, except my bin is X as opposed to Y.
You could dock his pay for extra copies. Yeah.
So I guess I understand what you're saying in terms of having a man take care of some of that stuff, but that's when we put in our MAM about a 2 years ago, roughly. But before that, we had tons of stuff, and people are going, oh, I need this, I'm going to put it into a MAM. The MAM's going, oh, but this is, flight -1, flight -2, flight -3, it's the same flight.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know it, the system doesn't know it, so you have to use some kind of analytics to go, hey, listen, this is the same 500 gig file times 8 that's sucking up my storage now.
So some of those analytics engines can probably help you with that, but at the same time, after you run it, you can't just pull the rug out underneath your MAM, because if your MAM sees that asset as a registered ID within the MAM, then you have a split brain issue. So, happy to chat with you more about it. I don't think there's a secret weapon, but I think you do have leverage because you do have a DAM, and maybe just a matter of tweaking some of your business process.
When we use the word, or I use the word collaboration, it gets thrown around a lot, and it's a good buzzword. To me, it comes down to version management. If I have to put 4 editors on a project, and each of them goes to their own edit bay and starts to work on their own version of that project, there's a lot of manual intervention and a lot of communication that has to happen to know what did you do to that sequence versus what did you do versus how did you use that project, and each person differently. And I think between the team projects, which I was mentioning, and not selling you anything, it's part of Creative Cloud, so if you guys use Creative Cloud, you already have that. We'll be announcing something this year at NAB as well as another version of collaboration, because I think if you can get multiple editors working on the same media at the same time, but keep it within a centralized project, it really cuts down some of that version management. It doesn't solve if people grab a camera card and ingest it in 4 different edit bays, you still have the problem of the duplicate media. So, there is some workflow process of either a centralized ingest process or person, or at least communication.
Read only is a useful tool. Permissions to write back to that folder is a useful tool. once you start to recognize that if someone's taking a file and creating their own personal copy somewhere else besides where they're supposed to be using that file from, then you have a fairly glaring example of someone who's not working within your workflow.
I think it's always good to do a review of your workflows and kind of see where you're at and what you're doing and how you're doing things kind of on a yearly basis, just because things change so much, and the way certain editors operate can change, significantly over the course of a year. So being able to just kind of go back and do a small little audit on the way that you're doing things, and is this the best way? Is this the most efficient way? And ensuring that at least the vast majority of those editors and those people are trying to operate within that framework, the duplication is going to go down. But workflow reviews are always good to do.
Yes, Dustin.
Ben, you just spoke a moment ago about putting multiple editors on a project. I know that Remax got caught up in a 2017 gotcha where a Premiere Pro, a new release broke the capability to share between users. And I think it took something like 3 months to get patched, which from a consumer's perspective just didn't seem like it was very urgent, but for most post houses I spoke to, it was very urgent. So I was just wondering if you could give us a peek behind the curtains, what that was like for you guys. How are you working through it? Because there just wasn't a whole lot of transparency.
Yeah,
that deserves 2 tickets.
Multi-part question.
No, just a 2-ticket question.
So there was an issue, as I mentioned, the challenges that we have. Software used to be on an 18 or 24-month release cycle, where you buy a box of software, and some people would use it for 3, 4, or 5 years. But every 18 or 24 months, there'd be a new version, and you could go buy a new box of software. As it's moved to agile development, where we're putting out 4 or so releases a year, we're in 3 to 4 month cycles of releasing products. If you're only making minor changes to software, you're less likely to break something. It's kind of the Jenga game. I took the piece off the top rather than off the bottom. We've been doing, which I'm really excited about, some really significant material structure work to help build a platform that's going to scale really well. So over the last few releases, we've taken the color engine out of our SpeedGrade, which is our color grading product, and integrated that as the core color engine for all of the video products. We did the same thing for the audio engine out of Audition, which was our high-end audio editing workstation. We brought that in as an audio engine that spans across all of the products. We're now taking some of the effects capabilities in Premiere Pro, which are really optimized on the GPU, and porting those over to After Effects, so that After Effects will get GPU acceleration for the first time, so you'll see significant performance there. We end up with this incredible, what we call media core, of all the best of our technology from all the different products as one core that we can build the different interfaces on. It makes us very agile, so that we can add a feature to that and decide it makes sense here, let's turn it on here, but we don't need it here. But we're not developing it 3 different times. We just talked about collaboration of 4 editors working on 4 different things without communicating with each other. So as all that change has gone on, it's a delicate balance. I mean, we're doing major structural changes in the code. We're changing the foundation of the house while people are living in the house. So we've definitely had a tendency to to introduce things because of that short cycle and how significant the work that we've been doing is. And not everything is going to get caught in the test cycle. So from 2015 to 2017, because we skipped 2016, it was a bad year, a lot of celebrities died and stuff like that. one of those releases. If you'd started a project in 2015 and another editor opened it in 2017 that wasn't the author of that project, there was a permissions issue. Now I thought, and I could be wrong, you could be right, I thought we got it addressed within about 6, 7 weeks. We scrambled, we made it a high priority, we did a specific patch just for it in 11.02, so it is resolved now, but it was painful for people that went through it. We're absolutely sympathetic to that. I mean, causing people downtime in today's environment where content has to turn around pretty quickly, and you guys are under deadlines and pressure and working late, we understand how important that is. So we we're trying to be as careful as we can in the process and respond as quickly as we can. Some things we've been able to fix in a day or in a week, and some things take a little bit longer to fix. And we've started also kind of putting planning a patch release after major changes like we've just done, so that we have kind of a little safety net, so that we have a planned release rather than 911 scramble mode of making sure we can fix anything that's introduced that we didn't catch in a constrained testing cycle. So I hope I don't sound like I'm making excuses. Obviously, again, software needs to be reliable, and we know you guys count on it, and we appreciate your support there. But we definitely challenges in all the work that we've been doing, and hopefully, we're certainly not resting on our laurels. We have a lot more to do with Premiere, but hopefully some of the major structural stuff will settle down, and we don't like having to rev a project each time, or you have to upgrade and promote your project to the new version either. So we understand those things are challenges for customers. We don't take them lightly at all.
Last question for the panel.
Yeah, I got this is my day job, but I teach editing over at Metro State, and I got a situation where the IT only does the upgrade once a semester, but then the student, every time they open their laptop, they're forced to do an upgrade. And then they come to me at the final, all panicked because they can't show me their work because they upgraded and the lab did not.
We see challenges like that a lot, and just because we release 4 versions or whatever year doesn't mean every company is in the position to upgrade them. So sometimes if there's a lot of testing and just going back to the quality, processes that need to be proven around it before people can make an upgrade. So it's more common that people do it once a year rather than the 4 times a year that we'll do releases or whatever the cadence is. There is an ability.
Save the last version. You do that check.
Yeah, so there is an ability as an administrator of a team or an enterprise version of Adobe to restrict updates so that people can update. So you make sure, and again, going back to collaborating, multiple people working together, everybody's on a unified version. Outside of that, for individual users and students and things like that, there isn't a way to restrict their updates. So we are looking into, After Effects has the ability to go, say, back a version. In Premiere, we can export an XML and typically go back a version. We're exploring the ability to go back a version in Premiere. It may be at the cost of some other things, again, because same with the conversation about testing different versions of OS is when we have to test every feature, and then we got to save it back a version and test every feature again. We're either doing less features or we're releasing software less frequently. And we want to make sure people are feeling the value of being on the Creative Cloud subscription and getting frequent updates. So it's a little bit of a delicate balance, sympathetic to it. It's something, again, we're exploring if we can do in Premiere. As we've made all these major changes, sometimes saving a version back isn't possible because it'll have effects that are introduced that didn't exist in that previous version, and that's where it gets to be a little more challenging than it appears on the surface.
So coming out with the 2017 book also, with the latest classroom and the book for Adobe?
Yeah, those are getting updated.
They didn't have a 2016 book, but they had 14, 15.
There wasn't a 2016 release.
Yeah, so I'm just looking to change the book in the class too. But I'm using currently the 14 because there was not a lot of difference with the 15.
Yeah, and I don't know the date, but I know that they're always working to get those updated as quickly as possible. Yeah,
one quick thing I wanted to add for your students, if they have a Creative Cloud individual account, there's no reason they can't have multiple versions of Premiere installed on their system. I've got 2014, 2015, and 2017 on my system right now. So, giving them the guidance to say, keep the same version that's on the labs and do that like at the beginning of the semester is just an awesome thing to do. Put it on them because there's nothing that we force them to upgrade. They may want the latest features. They may say, oh, Adobe came out with something, I had to have it, so I started using it. But there's no reason why they need to. If they know that they have to use the lab at some point, keep them on the same version.
Yeah, there was a lot of chatter about it, so then I read up on something. There was some check they could make to keep the previous version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a 15-minute bio break. We'll come back and Dave Zerr will kick us off, but thank you for the panel. A little hand for the panel. Yeah.